Hello everyone. Today I have brought some interesting ideas for your classroom. Yes, you can see here a reading corner. In this reading corner, you can see three holders. One is consisting of storybooks, another is having newspaper, and the third is holding children's newspaper. Storybooks, we all know that we have brought from Children Book Trust, that is CBT, NBT, some NCRT books, and a lot more. So, this is an interesting thing which I had in my reading time in my classroom, and where I allowed my children to choose any storybook which they can read. And also, today's newspaper is an interesting idea with which the children can read about today's news headlines, about weather report, and a lot more. Third thing is the children's newspaper, which I have collected from a lot of sources like Children Magazine, Young India newspaper, NBT's Children's Corner, and from many other places. So it's an interesting idea to bring into your classroom when the schools will open, because I'm sharing this now because you can collect newspapers from now only, because it will take a lot of time to collect good reading material for your children, and this is really precious because your children will gonna enjoy this, and the newspaper can cover a lot of interesting areas with which your children can be introduced about. So I have introduced this reading corner in my classroom and it really worked well. And the another idea is stories. Yes, children love to read story. And in my classroom, I observed that my children always, keen to read Hindi stories more, because their mother tongue is Hindi, so they are always interested to read a lot Hindi stories. So what I have done, I have collected some stories from the newspaper only, and the source of these newspapers are also Navbharat Times, and I have placed all these stories in a chart paper, and I have placed this chart paper at the height of children, so that the every child of my class can read, and even the children who can't read, they can see the pictures, and from the pictures they can depict the story. So I have seen that my children who are even unable to read were discussing about the pictures. So it's a very interesting to see that the children who are unable to read are still discussing about the pictures. Oh, this is something new added to our classroom, so they are talking about it and they're curious to do so. So you can see here a lot of Hindi stories from Tenali Raman, Akbar and Birbal, stories from the jungle, and you can even create this is as a big collection. So you can see that this can work well in your classroom, and you can really observe your children dealing with this kind of reading corner. Another is word wall. Yes, you can see here the words are written over this word wall, and these words are taken from the text of the children only, that what they are reading in the daily text, and the words which they found interesting, or they want to know the meaning. And so I place some of the words in this word wall, but placing this word wall is just not the task, but incorporating this word wall in the classroom is very interesting. Like what I have done, I have taken the quiz on these words so that the children can remember these words and the meaning of these words, or they can even act on these words. They can show the actions of these words, and they can make their peers understand that what this word is actually meaning. So it's an interesting idea which you must bring in your classroom, and you can observe that what other kind of creative ways you can use to incorporate this word wall better in your class. Next is writing corner. This is the most interesting part of this video, because this is just not a writing corner, but the children do associate their writing with their writing a lot. And in my lesson plans, I have given my children some interesting topics to write about. Like sometimes I have given them to write about their memorable journey, to write about their favorite midday meal menu, and also about their family, about their friends, and about their favorite food. So there can be n topics on which your children can write about. And the interesting thing is that the children are just not reading their own writings after some time, but they are also reading the writings of their peers also, and they are discussing about and they are talking about that. So this is a very interesting activity because children, read the reading text read the text of their best friend sometimes only. But on this writing corner, any child can place their own writing, and they can make their writing available to all. And sometimes the teacher can also choose some writings and place on this reading corner writing corner. Because this is a reading writing corner, first of all you place the writings of the children here, and then later on you can observe that the children will read also from this corner. And it's an interesting idea obviously, which you can bring on your in your classroom. And you can observe also that how the children are interested in reading and writing more. Another writing corner is story writing. In this, I have included a picture in my lesson plan. Okay. And I have placed that picture in front of all my children, and I told them to write different stories or whatever comes in their mind about this picture, and anything which they want to do. So children came up with a lot of different ideas, and they have actually written a lot about this picture only, what they are observing from this picture. Sometimes you will not get a story, but you will get some observations which are also important. And I have placed all those things around this picture, and later on children will really keen to know that what their peers have written and how their writings are different from their peers. So sometimes it's very useful for the teacher to make their learners interested in reading writing process. And this you can see my children have made some paper toys, and I have arranged those paper toys in a scene. And you can see that the dialogue box are also empty here. So I have not written anything, but I have seen that childrens can do role play through this. That my one children can become a parrot, other can become a crocodile, and other can become a frog. Some children wants to become the butterfly, or even some wants to become the tree. So they can create a group story in this. So I have observed this, that children can even write this story later in a group, and they can give their own dialogues. And it's an interesting activity if you really want to make this group activity. And apart from the group activity, the solo stories, the children, one child can make one story also about this scene, and this can really integrate it from EVS also, looking around textbook of NCRT. Yes, so it's just not for the language development of the children, but also it can be very useful for the integration of language and environmental studies. Next, you can see here a picture story, and you can see a lot of pictures here, and they are arranged in a particular sequence. And from this sequence, this is a story of roti. So the roti is telling its own story, that how it come from the fields to the plate. So it's an interesting thing, because the children, bringing themselves from the place of roti, and they are telling the whole story कि मुझे कब कैसा लगता है. So a lot of language gestures are coming into it, and apart from that, this can be integrated from the EVS teaching as well as with the language teaching as well. And yes, the integration of maths can also be done, that the shape of the roti is circle, and in all the areas which I have discussed, that can also be integrated from maths as well. So it's an interesting idea to bring in your classroom with a lot of print rich environment. And you can also be very creative to use this ideas together, as well as it's a lot of it's more depend on the teacher, that how the teacher is using all these ideas in the classroom. So all the best.